Loopy, and welcome to the Northland Workshop. Today is the first of the Shop Talk series of videos, which are essentially a behind-the-scenes look of what's going on in this workshop. And you'll get to see what goes into making a woodworking video. So right now, as you can see, there are project parts on that workbench, this workbench, tools over here, plywood over there, got everything strewn about, and that's because I'm in the middle of making an Adirondack chair. And not just any Adirondack chair, an Adirondack chair that you can make with a jigsaw and a circular saw. So I thought it would be interesting to just show what it looks like behind the scenes that you don't see on camera, and talk about some of the choices that went into doing this project. First thing I want to talk about, choice of tools. So for this project, I decided that I wanted it to be aimed towards the beginner that doesn't have a full shop of tools, because Adirondack chairs are a good beginner project. They're outdoor furniture. They don't have to be super precise like heirloom furniture does to be perfectly good as an Adirondack chair. So I wanted this to be something that you could build with a jigsaw and a circular saw. And I'm using my little antique trim saw, and I've got this super cheap $24 Harbor Freight cordless jigsaw that I got for Christmas a couple years ago, and I really like this thing. I like it a lot. The cord doesn't get tangled up because there is no cord. So that's what I'm using for this project, and I'm demonstrating all the different techniques with those two tools. However, the reality is that filming a video adds a lot of time onto a project, so I have to find ways to speed up that process to recoup some of that time. So while I'm showing using these on the parts, when the camera is off, I'm actually using the bandsaw and the table saw and the radial arm saw because of time. It can all be done with this and this, but it takes a little long. Here is the bandsaw in all its Emerson Electric glory. Emerson Electric is the company that makes the rigid stationary power tools and a lot of the old Craftsman stationary power tools. And you will notice that this thing has rails on it. I've got a fence for it that lives down in the base of it that goes on and allows me to rip things on the bandsaw and to resaw things. Now this is not a bandsaw fence. This is actually a 1930s Delta table saw fence that I modified the rails and the fence itself to fit this table. The rails are actually chopped down. They used to be 2 feet long, and I chopped them down to just over 17 inches long. Fun fact, you can always tell when I'm using the bandsaw in a video because when I'm not using it, I have tennis balls that I put over these rails because these rails stick out right where I walk, and I have scars on my back where these things have gotten me on occasion. And in the filming of the Adirondack chair video, I've gotten snagged on this one 3 times so far. So anytime you see these rails without the tennis balls on it, it means I'm actually using this bandsaw, and that's just a good indication that the bandsaw is in use. Here's one of the tennis balls right here, and I just cut a square out of it and a couple slits so that way it fits over the end and I don't skewer myself. Pneumatic pocket hole jig, everybody's favorite. Micro pocket hole jig. One of the drum sanders. I've been using these a lot, sanding the curves for the Adirondack chair. And then I have a recent eBay acquisition It is a vintage Craig K2 jig. So I have the K2, K3, and the heavily modified K4. And then down there I have the Harbor Freight one. That one has a lot of tear out. Right here I have the parts that I've currently made for the Adirondack chair. This is the front cross member. These are the front legs. And they're notched to accept the front cross member. It's a little bit of a snug fit. And that notch was done with the jigsaw. Side rails. Arm bracket things. And then the latest addition to the workshop, the Milwaukee 7 1/4 inch cordless miter saw. Don't really use it in the workshop because I have the wonderful radial arm saw. That's more for outdoor projects and things like that, and we will actually be using that in a future project in the great outdoors in a little bit, but for right now it's just sitting on the counter. One fun fact about that miter saw, when it came out of the box it was 1/2 degree off. Not its fault, because most saws, when they come from the factory, you have to do a little bit of adjustment to them. But it's just amusing to me because I have one of the Chicago Electric 12-inch sliding compound miter saws, and that thing came dead on out of the box at 90 degrees. So one of them, super cheap miter saw, ended up being spot on. Super expensive miter saw ended up being almost spot on. So before I forget, I've got 2 other projects in the works in various stages of design. One is a chest of drawers for the guest room in my house. So there's that. There's also an outdoor potting stand for doing little gardening things that I've been kicking around that I think I'm going to be doing. And that one, I'm waiting until I get some better weather because I actually want to do that all outside on the back deck. And that will be the unveiling, if you will, of the cordless miter saw. I think that's going to get quite a bit of use out there because when I brought the radial arm saw down here, I had to take it all apart and reassemble it. In fact, all the stationary tools in this shop are like ships in a bottle. They were all disassembled, carried down the stairs, and then reassembled. So they kind of stay down here. That thing is 28 or 29 pounds. It's a little under 30 pounds, so it's really nice to lug around. That was one of the key reasons I went with that one, is it was the lightest one I could find, and it had the longest run time, but mainly it was the lightest one I could find. And so that one's going to come back up and out to the back deck for potting stand extravaganza. So that's the next one on the docket after the Adirondack chair is done. Hopefully the Adirondack chair should be done by next weekend, so whatever the second Saturday of June is, hopefully there will be the Adirondack chair build video in its entirety. But if you're wondering what it looks like behind the scenes, it looks like a big mess behind the scenes. So there you go. And now, with that, I gotta get back to actually working on this thing. If you've made it this far in the video and you would like to have a shop talk video on a specific topic in this workshop, or a specific woodworking topic, let me know in the comments below, and we can use these shop talk videos as kind of a question and answer type thing. Once I build up a couple questions in the comments, I'll make a video answering those questions, or if there's some part of the workshop you want to see, or you're really curious about something and you want an explanation of why it's that way, and I'll warn you, sometimes the explanations aren't going to be all that amazing. It's just, that's the way it ended up being, and I haven't got around to fixing it yet. But if you want honest answers to questions, just let me know, and we will start doing the shop talk videos in between the actual build videos. So until next time, I'm Iain for the Northland Workshop. Thanks for tuning in.